Welcome to the, what are we, March 10th, 2020. We're still there. Our weekly celebration of service for the Bloomington Rotary Club. It's wonderful to have you all here. A great turnout. No headbutting, right? We'll start with a special guest reflection. Haven't had that before that I know of. Mary Ann Macklin will give a reflection on Bloomington's past, present, and future. Mary Ann is a member of the steering committee of the Captain Janeway Project, which has been endorsed by the city of Bloomington. And also we have Adam Nahas, who's with Artisan Alley, also a member of the Janeway Project steering committee. So we'll have Mary Ann come and
The flag first.
we'll have, that's my sentence. We have Mary Ann come and lead the pledge and then do the reflection. Thank you. Thank you for keeping me honest.
An astute group, I'll ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated.
You may be seated. So I want to tell you about a project that is happening. We're going to be putting a statue of Captain Catherine Janeway on the Beeline Trail. If you don't know who Captain Janeway is, think Star Trek. Go back a little further, and she was the first female captain of a series. So also a science officer, one of the top in Star Trek. So we want to use that as inspiration for scientists, for female leadership. She has influenced so many women in leadership, including Stacey Abrams, who said she was a great leader for her. And we have been working on this project for a long time. We have raised the money to do this, and we have partnering with folks like Wonder Lab, who they're going to do an all-day Star Trek day. We're partnering with other businesses, so let us know if you want to partner. We are getting responses literally from all over the world. We are getting people coming in. Memorial Weekend, May 23rd, will be the unveiling of the statue. And we have people coming in from all over the United States right now and perhaps the world. And they're having trouble getting flights into Indianapolis because there's this thing called the 500. And as I like to say, Indianapolis has a 500, we have Janeway. So for those of you who may not be as familiar with Star Trek, I wanted to read this from Gene Roddenberry. He created the series. He said, Star Trek was an attempt to say that humanity will reach maturity and wisdom on the day that it begins, not just to tolerate, but to take a special delight in differences in ideas and differences in life forms. If we cannot learn to actually enjoy those small differences, to take a positive delight in those small differences between our kind here on this planet, then we do not deserve to go out into space and meet the diversity that is almost certainly out there. And I want to say, for me, there's so much uncertainty, unknowns in the world right now that we're walking in. To do something this inspiring and fun has just and continues to be a delight with the steering committee. It's not when you say something needs done, everybody puts their head down. Everybody goes, no, I'll do that. I'll raise that fund. I'll go talk to that person. We're that excited about it. And it's really great to be working with Adam because he is an artist, and he'll tell you a little bit about the statue that's going to go up. Adam?
Hello, everybody. My name is Adam Nahas. I'm the executive director of Artisan Alley, and the Janeway Collective approached us about how to make this sculpture as well as how we could fundraise it. So we became their fiscal sponsor. We were successfully able to raise the money, and I'm overseeing the project. I'm like the project manager. So we're working with a portrait artist in California who is known for his lifelike renditions, his lifelike sculpture to get the most accurate sculpt that we can. We are in the approval process of that right now with CBS. After that, that will go to a foundry in Indianapolis called Sinceris, where it will be cast out of bronze. The bronze will have multiple patinas on it to create a kind of a lifelike finish. There will be polished elements. It's going to be a big piece of jewelry, essentially. And we want to use Indiana limestone, so that will act as the base. And then I don't want to give everything away because I want you guys to come out to see it, but there's a few sculptural elements to it that can only be noted when you're there. So it's really hard to explain, but a combination of the bronze statue, the limestone base, and an aluminum plate will go onto the front that details her birthday, which is what this is celebrating, as well as a little bit of information at the bottom of it. And then all of our partners, all of our sponsors, everybody that's been involved, we're going to have a little information booth next to it so you guys can learn more about it while you're there on site. So, yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, and I'll just add, her birthday will be May 20th, 2336. So it will say future birthplace of Catherine Captain Janeway. We'll be celebrating this. The unveiling will be May 23rd. It's Memorial Day weekend at 11 a.m. I hope many of you can make it. And if you're a business, let us know if you'd like to partner in any way. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge today's elbow greeter, Gil Souza. We have substitute photographers today, including Martha Foster, as Charlie Osborne had a family medical situation to attend to. And thanks to Community Access Television Services. Also, recognizing Roundabout Reporter for March, past President and Assistant District Governor Sarah Laughlin. And special thanks to the fine servers, staff, and leadership at the Indiana Memorial Union and IU Catering Services. Now to introduce guests, Sally Gasco.
This one, right? Thank you, Aaron. We're happy to have a whole sheet of guests today. We would like to start by, I'll introduce you and ask you to stand so that we can thank you for being here. Ed Robbins is a guest of Aaron Davis. Ed is a retired attorney. Do you ever really retire from being an attorney?
Retired actuary.
Oh, retired actuary. Oh, I misread it. I'm so sorry. Not starting out well. Okay. Retired actuary. Jeff Tinnis, also a guest of Aaron's, is in the international business world. That's what it says. Janice Westcott is a guest of Lynn Schwartzberg from One World Catering. Judy Schroeder has 3 guests who are balancing out our age today. We have Riley Mongovan, Judy's granddaughter, Adriana Garcia, and Joe Luton. Oh my gosh, Riley and Adriana are students at the University of Kansas, Rock Chalk Jayhawk. Okay. And Joe is a head athletic trainer at IU. Welcome, all of you. And let's see, who have I forgotten? I have forgotten the 2 people we heard from earlier. I just wanted to thank the Janeway Collective folks for being here. Marianne Macklin, you may not know, is senior minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Bloomington, a former speaker here at our club. And Adam Nahas, as he introduced you, is the head of Artisan Alley. 2 of my favorite people. We would love to see you all back here every week. So if you're interested at all in Rotary, please ask around your table. We'd love to have you back as an actual Rotarian. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. The Rotary family has one birthday this week. Rex Hillary. Where are you, Rex? Where are you? Okay, March 13th. And then 3 member anniversaries. Liz Feidel 16 years. Dick Rose, 18 years. And Jim Capshew, 2 years. And now I'd like to have Lauren Snyder come up for a brief announcement.
Just wanted to talk to you all about market volatility. Not really. Sorry. But seriously, if your family has any mortgages, that's one positive about all this. Look at refinancing. But no. In all seriousness, I wanted to come up and just ask, as the most recent past president, it is our duty to fill our upcoming slate after Ashley's presidential year, which would be 2021, 2022. And we are at this point that we have not been able to fill the presidency yet. We, as Rotarians, are people of action, people of leadership. And I am coming to you, soliciting you for potential participation in the leadership of our club. We've been doing this for 101, coming into 102 years, and we need someone to step up and serve as our club president. We have a lot of people in the room, myself included, Aaron obviously, who have served in this role. And if you want or have questions, please let us know. Once we fill the presidency, then we fill in all the subsequent officer positions as well. So if you have any interest, please let us know, at myself and or Mike Baker, and we will provide you with any information as to what it may require. So please let me know. Thank you. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Lauren, one of my role models. It's a great club, and being president is an honor and a responsibility. But Lauren carried his out very, very well. Rotary action updates. Most of these I'm only going to mention briefly. They'll be some of them will be in the roundabout. We have a family-friendly 505 at Viva Mas on Thursday, March 26th. We have an It Takes a Village Planning Committee meeting this afternoon, 4:30 at the warehouse, for those of you who are on the Planning Committee. Women's History Month celebration. If you're still interested, please reconfirm with me or Natalie. I think get your name on the list. We have either 8 or 9 people already. We could have two tables. It's 8 person per table. So if you're interested in attending that, please let us know now. The Rotary District Conference, April 17th and 18th in Plainfield. It's another great Rotary experience. Registration for Rotarians and Rotaractors, I would think. No, Rotarians under age 40 is $105, savings of $40. And now, happy dollars? Who's got something to be happy about? Ann. And who can help? Well, we don't have Jean, Joy, or... Very good. Oh, Joe. Okay. Thanks, Joe.
I'm happy because the Community Services Committee received 6 applications for grants. Deadline was yesterday. We received applications from Ivy Tech, Shalom Community Center, Stonebelt, Monroe County Community School Corps, United Way, and Habitat. And so the committee meets March 24th, and I informed the winning organization, and we together apply for the $3,000 match. Our college puts up $3,000, and we hope that the district grant again matches us with $3,000. So thanks for all of you who are involved in applying, and for the committee members, we'll see that the 24th will start the winner.
Great, and thank you for all your effort and the committee members. It's a core part of our organization. Mike.
I'm happy because we're going to have a meeting right after this. For anybody that will attend, I'll give you $1 if you're on the Bloomington Rotary Foundation. So that's Lauren, Kyla Cox, let's see here, Jerry, I saw you were here, Glenn, Craig Spence, Glenn Edmund, and Joy Harder. So if you're here 5 minutes max after this meeting today. And just my $1.
Okay. Anyone else? Happy dollars. Jerry.
I'm happy to be back after 5 weeks in New Zealand.
We're happy to have you back. Yes?
I'm
Adam.
happy to be a first-time father of a little girl that came about 2.5 weeks ago.
You've got it. That's what this is about. Yes. Glenda.
I haven't been as far as New Zealand, but I'm happy to be home also from California and Arizona.
Okay. Okay, well,
I've just got a
Lauren.
I've talked about my rock star of a wife. She's done it again. She was branding the Indianapolis 500. She took Joseph Newgarden and his personal trainer out to New York City recently, and they did a workout with a bunch of media to see what it's like to be an IndyCar Racing Series champion. And she planned it all, came up with the idea, and executed. And I mean, she's just a rock star doing great things for Central Indiana and promoting our incredible city and state. So I love my wife.
Thank you, and all those funds go to Teachers Warehouse. Now, I'm going to have Jerry Padgick introduce our program, fascinating program today. Thank you.
Our speaker today is Dr. Kay Kawada. He is an assistant professor in the IU School of Public Health and the Department of Kinesiology. His PhD is from Temple University, where his work centered on the effects of repetitive head impacts. He's currently working on using blood biomarkers and ocular motor systems to evaluate subconcussive head impacts. Please welcome Dr. Kawada.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and this is such a cool community. And first time, but hopefully I can come back someday. So today, I'd like to talk to you about what's happening at IU and my laboratory and my collaborators. This is a really cool stuff, and I can tell you this is a cutting edge. So let me just start with, the story begins with my brain. So 2006, I was just about graduating high school, and I was stupid. And I accidentally fell from pretty high ground, and I hit the back of my head. And you see that, well, let me just zoom in. So immediately after, there was no really noticeable damage at that moment, but 1 year after, I took the CT scan again, and there was you can see the black spot. That means the evidence of necrosis. That's the brain cell death. And this is actually, so I came to the US in 2006 after this trauma, which was stupid too, but it was okay because I didn't feel terrible. And what I noticed over the years was my arithmetic skill declined considerably, but surprisingly, my long-term memory improved. So there I say, I'm Asian and I can't do math. But sorry to disappoint you, but that's what it is. And I just want to put it out there. I'm not a math guy, but you see, we have a great team of mathematicians and statisticians, so we're good. So I thought about what to do with this talk, and unlike conventional presentation, I just wanted to take you guys to more the timeline, what's happening, along with other institutions, but I want to focus on what's happening at IU in my lab based on this timeline. So it's not just a ding to the head. In 2012, this article came out from The Atlantic, which is one of the biggest articles. And 10 ideas that changed the world in 2012. Football players beware, concussions can be deadly. And this was pretty scary headline. And I wouldn't say this, well, this is not true at that, still, I don't think it's true. But because of this kind of news feed, this concussion, the word concussion just exploded. It's just a common, like regular topic at the dinner table. and people talk about it all the time. Every single one of you have heard about this, right? And many studies have been coming out after, well, not just after, but before 2012 and all the way. And 2015, this was also huge to the public health standpoint of concussion. This movie was about single NFL player, retired NFL players, Mike Webster from Steelers. And what that was the disorder called chronic traumatic encephalopathy. This is called CTE. And let me just briefly talk to you about what the CTE is about. So the brain, I don't know if I can point. I don't think I can, but so you may be able to see, yep. So there is the brain cells, and then there is a projection from the brain cells that's called axon. That's really important to communicate one another. And this long pipe is really vulnerable to stress, such as twisting injury or stretching and shortening that comes with the trauma. And what happened is, inside of this tube, we have something called microtubule, and then this tau protein, this red, like a band that connects microtubule. But because of this stress, this protein, this band, red band, can be dissociated. Once it's outside of, well, out of that original place, this can be bound to this P. That's when it's called the phosphate. That's like a glue. And the glue binds to tau protein and then start to aggregate. Because P, phosphate, is pretty sticky, it's very difficult to wash away and clear from the brain. And that's what we see in the CTE brains. You see the deposit, so darker the staining means more tau aggregation. And that's what we see in the Mike Webster's brain and in some other brains. The important thing is, it's not the concussion causing this. It's the repetitive hits to the head, regardless of you have a severe symptom or not. It's just a matter of how many hits you sustain. But at that moment, it was really weak evidence because they test those brains of deceased NFL players and saying that, well, these guys played a lot of football. So assuming that, they sustain a lot of hits. So maybe the hits is the problem. But that's not really true. So there was a clear gap that we have to follow those kids and high school athletes and college players all the way till 40s, 50s, 60s when they start to have symptoms. But they kind of jump on the gun and saying, hey, football is that dangerous. I don't think that's true. So our mission was to try to prove, is this real? In 2016, this paper came out from my laboratory, and this was the first subconcussive head impact paper. And you can see the 782. That was the one of the top 1 percentile in media exposure, showing that we use this mouth guard that with it comes with the computer chip that can detect magnitude of the head, linear and rotational accelerations. And what we did was a little bit complex, but let me just break it down briefly. So we tested a bunch of things such as eye movement and blood biomarkers, and also testing all the head impact exposures all the way throughout the football camp. And we tested the before, pre-post of all 5 chosen practices. And then we saw that, so we split them into players into 2 groups, one with a really high impact, high exposure, and one without. And what we saw was a difference in the behavioral markers. We can see that if you sustain so many hits, their markers elevated. Eye movement was impaired. Elevation means bad. But if you just sustain normal amount, there was no change, which was really helpful at that time. And this was the first one. But as you can say, I thought this is an interesting preliminary data, but there's so many confounding factors, so many variables that might influence this, such as hydration, exhaustion, exercise effect, tackling to the body. They experience so many things more than head impact. So in 2017, let's just continue. 2017, we came up with this modality called sacroheading model. This is to induce repetitive mild hits in the laboratory and test whether really head impact is the one causing this, because we can eliminate all those exercise effect, dietary difference, or exhaustion, perspiration, everything is gone, just to see the head impact effect. And using this study design, that's pretty clean cut. Before heading exposure, and then heading exposure was about 10 hits. And then after 3 time points. And we got a lot of data. First one is a smooth eye pursuit. This is using like the Oculus model with the virtual reality thing, and then that make them track the circular trajectory. At the pre-heading baseline, they can track really well. And 0 hour and a 2 hour and 24 hour post, there is a zigzag pattern. There was an impairment even after 10 hits. And after 24 hours, it was normalized though, which was good. And we also tested the balance. And using this, it was pitch black room. And so in order to balance, you have to activate 3 different systems. One's vision, and the other one is a proprioception, that's within the muscle, so you can see the tension, where you can feel that the body is swaying. And also vestibular function in the ear. So we blocked the vision by making it pitch black, and we put them on a foam plate, like a soft plate, to perturb their proprioception, the muscle sense. So we can isolate the vestibular function. And what we saw was the black triangle, that was the heading group. There was immediate impairment right here after soccer heading compared to the controls. So balance system, especially the vestibular function, was also impaired. And we also tested the blood biomarkers. This biomarker came from the axon, that was the pipe from the neurons. If you're healthy, this biomarker should stay inside of the cell. You should not see that in the blood circulation. But as you can see in the red line, there was a gradual elevation in the heading group, while kicking group did not change. So we found out that, yes, maybe the head impact does have some effect to the brain. But this is not enough to connect to, so are they going to develop CTE? And I don't think so at this moment, but we have to keep going. In 2017, at the same time, this paper came out. This was one of the biggest things. It was featured in New York Times, published in JAMA. It was 110 brain, NFL brain. They tested CTE out of 111 NFL deceased players' brain, and out of 110 was diagnosed with CTE. That's 99.4%. And this shook the world because based on this, every single NFL player is going to have CTE. But this is not true. It's a screening bias, which means if your family members are worried about their spouse or maybe father, right? They're going to donate their brain to do autopsy because they were so worried. If some NFL player lived till 85, lawyer or doctor or anybody like community service and engagement, and then die peacefully, do you think they're gonna donate the brain to do autopsy? No. They're gonna say, good job, great life. They're not gonna donate to the Boston Brain Center. So these brains are concerned family member already donated. So it's a complete bias. I don't think it's a 99% at all, right? That's something that the general public don't really realize. They just see this thing and then get, oh my God, everybody's going to experience this. That is really not true. And I also don't think that the CTE doesn't exist. It does exist, right? At the same time, we were so productive. They're conducting so many things. So in the Boston group, we're saying they're testing the brains of deceased patient and going backward. Try to go back to their life and then go back to medical chart to see what happened before lead to CTE. But we were doing different. We were testing the young people and try to follow as they age, right? And hopefully we can come to the middle. That's our hope. So we tried to eliminate so many factors. So we used heart rate variability to test some cardiovascular effect and also the exercise effect in the field. And we use blood biomarkers, eye movement, and head impact sensors. And we conducted a next bigger study, not just as a summer camp, but entire season of high school football players. You can see the 6 games, and each game we have pre and post measurement, and also baseline and post-season data collections. And let me just acclimate you what their exposure. So I'm going to talk about gravity force, G-force. So if you're driving a car at 30 miles per hour, and then you just hit the brick wall, and then airbags it's going to pop out, and then you experience the G-force about 40 G, right? And let's just take a look at what they experience, some of the football players. You can see this is the same subject, this is linebacker, on the same day during the game. Some of those hits are at 21 G, 12 G, as you can see, but those 3 hits, 160 G, 114 G, 137 G, right? This is a real hit that's registered in the mouth guard, and we also validate it with the film. But the problem is, if you don't have severe symptom, we don't pull them out. They just shake it off and keep playing because they can, because they want to be there, right? So this guy keep playing. Next hit, 10G, 15G. This is not this is not a really safe hit. So that's why this kind of technology allow us to see, okay, that was big. Let's just pull him out and then check him, right? But we're not there yet, right? This is the preliminary data. And what we see in the blood biomarkers, this is also same biomarkers came from the neurons. And as the time goes by, the game 1 pre and post and game 2 and all the way, this blood biomarker gradually increased as in proportion to the head impact exposure. This gray line is the head impact, black line is the blood biomarkers. And that tells us that the number of head impact will control the severity of brain stress. We also tested other biomarkers that's related to another brain cell that's called astrocyte. And we saw the acute elevation in these biomarkers in pre and post. That means, say you sustain 40 hits in a single game, you expect to see some elevation. And compare it to somebody experience about just 10 hits, right? There is a head impact dependent change in brain stress level. And this was, yes, it's really a warning thing, and it's not hopeful at this, like right now, 2017. But this is something that we have to understand first. What's the problem, and how can we make it better? And then let's find a solution. That's always a step. We have to find out how bad is it, right? And we also presented this in military, and our group has been very successful in attracting the military exposure. So I was just representing this group, and I was able to win the Young Investigator competition out of 356 competitors. So with 360 people competed. Thank you. So those big institutions, Harvard, Boston, and North Carolina, and I was able to represent IU and showing that we're doing really important job. And that translates to also military service members because they do experience blast force. That's really similar to football. But more importantly, at the same day, so we got this email, and my PhD student, Zach, and he received the email saying, okay, I got this email from this journal, and I don't know what this means. And this was his first publication, his first paper. And the journal wanted to publish his paper. And I told him, hey, Zach, I think they want to publish your paper. This is a really good thing. The expression in his face, the smile, was just so priceless. It was on the same day that I got award in military conference. And I was more happy for Zach and realized that this is why I'm doing what I do. It's not really that science is important, but how to foster and how to nurture my students. And I realized I'm in the right profession. And fast forward, and now what's happening? So there are some hot topics in neurology, and we're investigating not just the subconcussive impact in general population, but we're also interested, and we have to find out personalized medicine. So this is what we know so far. Athletes with ADHD, the more common to experience concussion, and they participate in the contact sports. So the athletes with ADHD are really vulnerable population, but we have no idea, can they take those little hits? And we conducted this study. So this is a soccer heading study. It looks like this. So you shoot a soccer ball 10 times in soccer players' head. All right? This is normal for soccer players, so they can take it. But if you repeat that, we can see some subtle difference, subtle change. And we tested the verbal memory and visual memory for 3 groups on the right side. We have one group with ADHD headings. They're soccer players with ADHD. And non-ADHD heading means they're soccer players without ADHD. This non-ADHD kicking means they're soccer players, they did not, and without ADHD, but they didn't do headings. They instead did a kicking. It's a control group, right? Now verbal memory, let's take a look. So blue lines, both non-ADHD group, improved gradually over time, but this red, which is soccer players with ADHD, after head impact, they declined. And there was a statistical significant difference. In a visual memory, same thing. Blue lines improved. That means if you don't have ADHD and sustain 10 hits, your memory at least are non-affected at all. But if you do have ADHD, this can be very difficult. We found these comorbidities and these factors, and now we're applying this into much bigger, I think, the platform. So I'm not sure if you've seen this, but last year, this came out from Herald Times. We were the front page, and talking about the Bloomington North football team, and we're conducting a longitudinal study of freshman to senior. We're going to track them for 4 years. And then we're going to track their head impact exposures and their neurological health all the way. So maybe we can intervene before it gets worse. Study design is not important, but I just want to illustrate this as very, very robust study design. And last week, this is the first time I'm telling the big crowd, but this proposal to NIH, National Institute of Health, was approved or scored really high, and we're going to be awarded with $3.6 million to study this issue. So, thank you. So we will be expanding the study to not just Bloomington North, but Bloomington South, Edgewood, Morrisville, and all the football teams all over the place. So where are we heading? So we are trying to identify how many head impacts are safe and or unsafe, right? But at the same time, we have to identify, so what's the comorbidity? Is it the sleep deprivation, or is it ADHD? Or is it diet or gut health? Because there is a gut-brain, the connection. So we have to identify all that, and simultaneously, we're trying to identify combating factors that counteract brain effect. What we find out, we're trying to run the study right now with the omega-3 fatty acid fish oil. The one component, something called docosahexaenoic acid, DHA, is a really good for neuroprotective effect. So we're trying to prove that might be able to counteract. Very interesting things. So the policy or guideline that came out from IU might impact millions of athletes to tell them, hey, you had enough exposure, you have to sit. Save it for the game. Right? You don't need to participate in a contact practice today, but you can play over the weekend or game. That's a really important step. And some of the preliminary data, I don't think it's hopefully someday, maybe a year from now, you can invite me back and I can give you more detailed results with some hope. But we see that as we sell, this is a new brain imaging. The brain damage and tested by biomarkers and neuroimaging was presenting really the players with very high frequency of head impact. And that's something it's not good. If you sustain thousands of hits, because some players do sustain more than 1,000 hits in the matter of one season. We have to mitigate it. We have to intervene that, right? And the data shows that that's not a good thing. But if you sustain low level of hits, that's fine. Right? Just like a baseball pitcher, 100 pitch and you're out. Football, 1,000 hits and you're still in. That's not a right protocol, right? We don't have any threshold. That's what this NIH funding will try to do. So a new frontier starts from IU, and I just want to make it clear that I'm just representing the group, and I'm very, very fortunate to lead this really big group it's IU made, and most importantly, my students. They are working tirelessly, and I'm doing my amazing job. Thanks for the kind audience.
Wonderful. Do we have time for some questions? We have time for a few questions. Julia.
It's not a question, I would just like to thank you for giving evidence that being able to do math is not essential to being a success.
Thank you. That's right.
Jim Sims.
Thank you for that presentation. I was wondering, in your study from freshman to senior year, is there any consideration of what they might do in off-season with other sports or other activity that could impact some of your post data?
Good question. Thank you. So how about, that the football season is a fall season, but they do participate in winter and spring season. Are we accounting for that? And that's a question. That's a really important question. And we know there might be some effect. So we are accounting for those head impact exposure and concussion if that happens during that spring season. But good thing about spring season is those sports are not frequent head impact exposure type of sports, luckily. So those football players many of them go into basketball and baseball. And those are not really high frequency of head impact, as you can imagine, compared to football. So the effect might be minimum. But at the same time, we're recruiting a control group. They are swimmers and cross-country runners. They have same chance of participating in spring and winter football, or winter sports. So because we have controlled data, we can subtract and account for those the spring season or the sports exposure. So in that sense, we are statistically accounting for, of course, I'm not running statistics, but my team is accounting for that. So we can still say the season by season, maybe elevation, the freshman season's neuronal stress, brain stress, to senior brain stress might be a little bit different, but we can still account for all those noise.
Now, I have a question.
Yes.
Is there any research on any differential risk factors for female athletes?
Oh, thank you. Thanks for asking. That's a really important question, and that's my student, Megan Hubricks. She is interested in just that because evidence shows the female athletes, even the comparable athletes, softball compared to baseball, and female basketball compared to male basketball, and female soccer compared to male soccer. Those comparison, and it's a pretty even field, but the female athletes are 2 to 3 times more likely to sustain concussion. And we already know that in this large sample size. Why is it? And then some of the effect might be because of their neck strength, because female soccer players use same soccer ball, same size, the same inflation of soccer ball with male. And some of the research shows when you sustain head impact, the female brain, because of maybe the the circumference and also neck strength, might be weaker than some of the male soccer players. So upon impact, their neck goes more like whiplash type. Rather than male, it might sustain better. So if you have more movement, there's going to be more stress to the brain. That might be one of the reasons. But Megan is more interested in the hormonal cycle. Well, the menstrual cycle. Yeah, sorry, thank you. Menstrual cycle. So menstrual cycle has different. So the estrogen has the brain has a specific receptor to estrogen. If you have a lot of estrogen, at a certain point, you might feel foggy or not clear in thinking. And during the time you sustain hit, you might be more likely to develop concussion compared to those estrogens really low. So there are two phases. And so the before ovulation phase, you might be more resilient to trauma, but after ovulation phase, you might be more susceptible. So that's something that the Megan's dissertation is about. So really good question, thank you.
Okay. Jerry?
With what you know now, would you allow your own children to play these various sports?
Yes, I get that question a lot. And I have a little son, he's 3 years old, and he just banged his head every time, wherever he goes. So, and I'm not worried, honestly. So, what I can say is, I prefer not my son to go to NFL. That takes years of dedication and sacrification to play sports. And that's, I was at NFL before, the Detroit Lions. I used to work there as an athletic trainer. So I respect that, and I love football. And but at the same time, I also was at Bloomington North football practice a lot. And those coaches, and of course parents too, in the sports medicine group, are really careful. So when I see those practice and they're segmented, like they try to minimize exposure, and I realize this is really important because they learn camaraderie, respect, discipline, and team play. And those are, so you have to kind of outweigh the risk versus benefit. And when I see all the good football program, I see the benefit more than risk at high school level, or junior high school and Pop Warner level. But beyond that, and then if you go to Alabama or UT Austin, D1 football team, that will be different because they have to win. So they'll do everything they can to win. I see that you're gonna lose regulation. So up to that point, I think it's really important. It's good.
Charlotte?
Can you predict any long-range effect on people?
So long term, so it takes more follow-up than freshman to senior to say yes. If you sustain so many hits, some of them will go on to really strong D1 football program and on to NFL, and their likelihood will goes up. But with this framework of high school freshman to senior, we cannot predict who is going to develop this long-term neurodegenerative effect. So this is one segment, but other institutions are likely studying those CTE and going backward. Some people are studying more geriatric population who had football experience for a long time. So we're gonna patch all that to start to estimate. That's what I see in the future.
I have a quick question. You mentioned that the 99% CTE representation in the New York Times article misrepresents the statistic. Do you have an idea of what the statistic might be?
Good question. That's something that I know people are working on it because that article was bashed really hard. And I have not seen any real data because we don't, so it's really confusing. Some people, yes, they donate. Some people, even though families are concerned, but they don't donate. And then some population of NFL, the deceased patient, they were not concerned, so they didn't donate. There are 3 different tiers. We know one thing, that's what we see, the concern and donate. But unless we know the concern but not donate population, that we cannot accurately estimate what's the statistics of NFL players, brains, and CT effect.
Now last one from Phil Eskew.
Talk anything about helmets?
That's a good one. So the helmets. So one thing I know for sure is in 2012, 2010, the helmet company were evolving their helmet so well. And then because of that, the catastrophic injury, such as skull fracture, went down so much. You don't see that in football. But like, early 2000 or the way before, like 1990 or 1980, there are so many skull fractures because of the helmet was not evolved. But the helmet evolvement and concussion did not, so the helmet did not reduce number of concussions. Concussions still happened. And the one thing that the helmet companies were talking about is the woodpecker. So the woodpecker, they do their thing, and then that's like 3,000 times of hitting the wood, right? But they seem fine. They don't seem having dementia, right? They just fly wherever they need to, and then they continue their job. So the helmet companies were trying to develop something mimicking that woodpecker's brain's the structure. So woodpecker has something really interesting, the peculiar structure that we don't have. One, it's called hyoid bone. That's below our. It's like close to your the esophagus, allows you to swallow. But woodpecker-wise, the hyoid bone wraps around their brain and work as a shock absorber. Because of that, I'm not sure you know, but back then, like 5-10 years ago, there was a collar in the football players. I don't know if you've seen, but that was tried to mimic some of the woodpecker's effect. And you don't see that collar anymore because it's not working. So what I can say, and then the 2019, last year, 18, the one paper came out proving from Sweden, a Swedish group, proved that they had woodpeckers, mature woodpeckers, and then they dissected their brain and they found CTE in their brain. So it's not that the helmet cures CTE or head impact. So helmet is a good thing. But in a way, people are saying because helmets are so good, so strong, they use that as a weapon and they feel fine. I can hit it so hard. And then the head impact collision force increases as football technology evolves, which is not actually what we want, right? So
thank you.
Thank you so much.
And that's all being done here at IU. Thank you for that presentation. Let's see. Well, I'll have a close. Okay, Jim Shea's focus group on documentary, the documentary about charter schools, will be held at 1:30 right after this in the Hoosier Room. Thought of the week. After enough concussions, the head injuries blur together. That's from James Nickel. So please join me in reciting the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendship? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, is it fun?